Today on the You Can Heal Your Life podcast, join nutrition and functional medicine expert and best-selling author Dr. Mindy Pelz as she discusses her brand new audiobook, The Menopause Reset. Get rid of your symptoms and feel like your younger self again. Dr. Mindy has helped thousands of women reset their health during their turbulent menopausal years, and today she shares proven strategies to fix hormone changes that can cause symptoms such as memory loss, weight gain, mood swings, hot flashes, and unexplained anxiety. You can listen to the full audiobook free with a trial of the Empower You Unlimited audio app. To download it today, visit hayhouse.com/empoweryou.
Hello everyone, I am Melody Guy and I'm an executive editor at Hay House, and today I have the distinct pleasure of talking with Dr. Mindy Pelz, the best-selling author of Fast Like a Girl and author of the recently published The Menopause Reset. Hi, Dr. Mindy.
Hello. So excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited to have you here. I know this isn't your first appearance on the podcast, but for people who aren't familiar with you, would you mind kind of introducing yourself?
I thought you were going to say, can you tell everybody who you are? Because that is the most difficult question that I have. My name is Dr. Mindy Pelz. I have been in the health and wellness profession for over 25 years, really deep in the trenches, helping, families, primarily led by women, teaching them the lifestyle that they need to stay healthy. And so my passions have quickly become fasting, which is why I wrote Fast Like a Girl. There's so much evidence that fasting can really help us balance our hormones. And I would say my second passion is menopause, as I am a 53-year-old woman, and I've watched so many women struggle through that process. So that's my quick answer today.
All right.
Every day it changes a little bit.
All right. Well, can you tell us a little bit about the Menopause Reset? Like why did you write it? And just the structure of the book as well.
You know what's really funny is that this has kind of been all my books, but especially the Menopause Reset is like, I didn't really set out to write a book on menopause, but what happened was I was teaching fasting on my YouTube channel, and I started to see this very clear separation between how men responded and women responded to fasting. And so I started to notice that our lifestyle really dictates our hormonal profile and how these hormones show up. And so fasting was just one piece of a lifestyle that could really balance a woman's hormones. And so as I was learning that, I also started to figure out, wait, there's other lifestyle tools that I needed to do for my own perimenopausal journey. But I also started using these tools with my patients, and we started to see, again, a pattern, a trend, that these tools, 5 of them in particular, were really important for women to use as a lifestyle roadmap when we got over 40. And so I started sharing it publicly, and then everybody asked me to put it in a book. And so that's how the Menopause Reset was born. It was my discovery, not only through my own menopausal lens, but through my patients and then through what we saw online. And, one of the really fun things about my job now is we have so millions of women that pour on to my platform every week. And so we can start to see patterns and we can see trends. And what I'm seeing with menopausal women right now is that we're really suffering because nobody's taught us how to match a lifestyle to our hormonal profiles and the hormonal changes that happen during menopause.
Has anything emerged as like one of the top concerns of menopausal women?
Yeah, this is a big one. It's really the mental health of the journey through menopause, because it's almost like you feel sideswiped. So what's happening is as we go into our 40s, the new term I'm using is called our neurochemical armor. It's like our hormones, our neurotransmitters, they're at a certain place when we are actively cycling. But once that cycle stops, the hormones decline If we're not careful, the neurotransmitters decline. And this neurochemical armor that we've had to keep our energy up and help us sleep and help us think right and hold on to inner information is being shed. And so as these hormones and neurotransmitters and the whole neurochemical system changes, so does our lifestyle. It has to change. And so the best way I can explain this is the diet you did at 35 is not going to work at 45. The exercise routine you did at 35 doesn't work at 45. So the biggest thing I'm seeing is that there has to be a dramatic shift in which we approach everything from the way we eat to the way we exercise to, the supplements we take. I think that's the biggest aha I'm seeing, is that if you don't make that shift, menopause is rough. But if you do make that shift, you can really smooth out the journey and the struggle becomes optional.
So hormones.
Yes.
You talk about HRT, how that fits into the journey. Should, all women be on hormone replacement therapy? What's your thinking about that?
Yeah, it's such a good question because, as you know from, we chatted weeks ago, that is the new topic of menopause right now, is to HRT or not to HRT. And I think before I answer that question, what I want everybody to understand is that what is happening at 40 to a woman's body is that her ovaries are going into retirement. Like they have officially are going to start to decline sex hormone production. And the 3 sex hormones that start to go down from your late 30s all the way till your mid 50s are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Estrogen is the one that much of HRT is dealing with. So estrogen goes on a wild ride. She's up one day, she's down the next. She's up one day, down the next. And then that kind of happens through mid 40s, where about the late 40s, estrogen just totally starts to decline. Progesterone just starts declining at about 35, they say now. It just starts to go down. And if stress is high enough for menopausal women, testosterone will start to tank. And that's a whole separate conversation. So these are the 3 hormones and their journey. And so with HRT, we have to really be mindful that just putting estrogen back into the system isn't the complete answer. So I have heard from hundreds of thousands of women that will tell you that HRT saved them. And I believe it. I've also heard from hundreds of thousands of women that they took HRT and it was horrible. And they were even worse off, or that it didn't do anything at all. And that's because we have to take all 3 hormones into consideration. And so I'm actually clinically more a fan of bioidenticals because they're more natural with what our hormones are naturally doing. I think with HRT, we're revisiting it because so many women are struggling. And I get it. Like, it's really important that we have some tools for women. But whether you go HRT or bioidenticals, you still got to do this lifestyle that's going to keep these 3 sex hormones in effect. So I think if you're going to go down the HRT path, the menopause reset becomes even more important for you to make sure that you're doing the 5 lifestyle changes. Otherwise, you're either not going to get a result or it's going to be a horrible whiplash of emotional tears.
So as far as these lifestyle changes, what is the most important? I mean, I know that they're all important, but where should you begin in terms of implementing them?
That's so hard for me. It's like telling me to pick one of my favorite children. Okay. Well, I would say what is the most important and what is the easiest are 2 different things. So Number 5 is my favorite, and I didn't coin the term. It's called the rushing woman syndrome. And a dear friend, Dr. Libby Weaver, I read her book, Rushing Woman, the Rushing Woman Syndrome, and I cried. I was like in my early 40s when I read it, because basically she so eloquently mapped out that women of all ages, our hormones are more vulnerable to stress than men. And I had never really fully taken that in. So what I did is I looked at where stress really affected women over 40. And if you just look at the concept that the human body, both men and women, we are programmed, our number one like focus of the body is survival. So your body will do everything it can to actually stay alive. But as women, we have a second priority, and that's reproduction. So when we look at when stress comes in, whether it's like chronic stress, acute stress, like just the barrage of stress that we're seeing so many humans, but especially menopausal women, when stress goes up, it actually requires a very key steroid called DHEA. And all over the Menopause Reset, you will hear me talk about DHEA, because DHEA makes 3 hormones. It makes cortisol, it makes progesterone, and it makes testosterone. So if you are in a constant state of stress all the time, your DHEA stores will constantly go to cortisol, making cortisol over and over and over again, leaving less DHEA for progesterone and testosterone. And what that means is you're going to tank those 2 hormones quicker than need be. So in the Menopause Reset, I really talk about we gotta focus on this one precursor to these 3 hormones. So when you ask me, what's my favorite, I think the most important is learning for us to relax a little bit, learning for us to, create space in our week to like slow down. I can tell you in my 40s, one thing I did was I started making Friday afternoons and all day Sunday completely unscheduled. I just needed like moments where I knew I could be spontaneous. I could sit on the couch if I wanted, but I felt like the end of the week and the end of the weekend really could help me recoup for being a badass Monday through Thursday. So, but that's how I adapted to knowing that stress was tanking progesterone more and testosterone more than it needed to be. And then really the last thing I'll say on this that I think is really important is progesterone's what calms us. So if you're feeling anxious through your 40s, 50s, through your menopausal journey, that's progesterone. And a really good starting place is looking at your stress levels. And testosterone, of course we know it as libido, and a lot of menopausal women really lose our libido. So that's important. But maybe equally as important is our motivation and drive. So testosterone keeps us focused and desiring to build amazing things in our life, whether they're friendships or careers or creation of books, like whatever it is. But all of that that whole system is going to be turned upside down if your stress stays at the same level throughout your menopausal experience.
Well, so you mentioned cortisol in all of that. Does the role of cortisol, or does the way it acts in the body, does it change during menopause?
Yeah, a little bit. So how it acts is a little bit. So here's what's the interesting thing is your ovaries, as they go into retirement, they have been the primary makers of our sex hormones. So once they literally, it's kind of weird if you think about that, we end up with these organs in your body that they're not like dead, but they're just, they've done their job, but the ovaries obviously still stay inside of us. But what they have to do is they have to hand over the making of sex hormones to another organ. And so what they do is they hand it over to the adrenal glands. Well, let's look at this through the lens of the adrenals. The adrenals are going to be like, what? Like, are you kidding? I've been raising a family. I've been helping you push through your intense work schedule, your family schedule. I've been showing up for you when you work out, and now you want me to make sex hormones? So I think if we can look at these hormones as friends, what changes is that cortisol has a lot more load placed upon her. So let's give her a little break so that your adrenals don't have to make as much cortisol so that they can make the sex hormones that you really need to thrive through this experience.
Okay. I see a lot of TikToks about adrenal resets. Is that like a real thing? Is that something that...
Oh, it's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So adrenal fatigue is not a real thing. So let's just start there. Let's just, if you don't know that, like, we got to get you up to speed, the people listening on that. It's not like your adrenals necessarily wear out, but what happens is there's a team, an adrenal team, and it's your hypothalamus pituitary. The hypothalamus is taking in information from the body and taking in information from your environment. So if you have a ton of stress in your body, you've been feeding your body toxic food, you've been wearing your body down, the message the hypothalamus is getting is we are in a crisis. If your external stress is incredibly high and every moment of your day is a constant, stressful, reactive moment, then the information that the brain is telling your hypothalamus is we're in a crisis. So when you are getting body crisis and brain crisis, what the hypothalamus will do is it will tell the pituitary gland, hey, wake those adrenals up. We need more cortisol. We need more epinephrine. We need more norepinephrine. We have a massive crisis going on. So that system is what gets fatigued. It's like, think of it like if you, I live in an old home. And if we turned on all of the appliances at the same time, it'll create a circuit break in the house. And all of a sudden, the main circuit will go down. That's what's happening, is that if your body is in a state of stress, your life is in a state of stress, the HPA circuit shuts down. And now you're not getting those juicy hormones that gave you energy before.
Okay. Well, right before this interview, I caught your lives, and there were a lot of people in that lives. I can tell that people have been anticipating this book. This is information that they feel they aren't getting anywhere else. In one of the comments, someone said that they went through menopause more than once. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah, yes. Okay, so let's talk about what the normal age to go through menopause is, because I think there's a lot of misconception out there, and some of it is really scaring me. So the healthy age for most of us needs to be after 50. So average age is 52, 53. And the reason you want to delay the full menopause experience is because you get more estrogen. So remember that estrogen is what's releasing the egg. So you got to have that estrogen to release the egg, and then you've got to have progesterone to shed the uterine lining. So if you lose that egg release and the shed of the uterine lining at an early age, you are also losing the neuroprotective benefits that these two hormones create. So like estrogen keeps us mentally clear. Progesterone stimulates GABA, keeps us calm. Estrogen helps us hold on to information. Estrogen will also help with dopamine and serotonin production, keep us happy. So what we're seeing is a lot of women, because they're not making these adaptations to their lifestyle, are going into menopause earlier. Like I heard actually an OB was interviewed on a major news channel and said, well, the youngest menopausal patient I have is 17. Okay, that's not menopause. That is an environmental impact on a woman's hormonal structure. That is not okay. So when I hear somebody say they went through menopause twice, I kind of smile because I'm like, oh, you went through it once. You must have done something with your lifestyle that cleaned it up, and then you went through it again. I would tell you, I've probably been through many iterations of menopause. This is part of where I came up with the principles in the Menopause Reset, is that I at 45 thought I was going into full-on menopause. I had lost my period for 6 months, and then I cleaned it up, and all of a sudden it came back, and it came back very, very regular. So it's really interesting that, and I've seen this in our group, like it's crazy. So many women will tell me like, oh my God, I haven't had a period for 10 years. I followed these 5 principles and now I actually got a period. What is going on? And they just cleaned the system up. So they got one period. It's not like they start getting periods forever, but they got one and they cleaned it up. And that's a beautiful thing.
Didn't you tell me like someone in their 60s or 70s had another cycle?
Yeah. Like all the time. The first time I saw it happen, I was like, oh my God. And then it happened to a good friend of mine. And I was like, who was in her late 50s. And she's like, I've got breast tenderness. I actually had a full day of a period. I haven't had a period. And she hadn't had one in like 15 years. And I was so excited for her because we have to remember that these hormones are neuroprotective. They are cardioprotective. And we need to make sure that we're getting rid of the hormones after they're being produced. So there's a lot of pieces of the hormonal journey that needs to be in proper order for us to stay healthy. And with the Menopause Reset, one of the motivators for me was that I started seeing statistics saying that more women get breast cancer post-menopause, which is really interesting because I think we really think of like breast cancer now as like a 40-year-old, women get it. We don't always think of it as post-menopause, but we can take that one issue and we can say, yes, you need to make sure your estrogen progesterone balance is great. And you want to make sure the menopausal journey only enhances that balance. It doesn't throw it off.
Well, you talked about misconceptions. Is there one big menopause myth that people need to have, broken down once and for all?
Yeah. Oh my God. You got like 5 hours?
Okay.
I love this question. This question. Yeah. Okay. So here's the big myth. And this is what we have to change. And this is what the book I'm writing right now, I really hope will crack open. Menopause is not a curse. It's a gift. And this is why this is so important because, and I said this yesterday on the live, we have to remember that our hormones have created this nurturing aspect of ourselves, whether we're aware of it or not, whether we have children or not. When our hormones have been coming in full spectrum of hormones, it makes us emotionally have this wide bandwidth of emotions. It makes us estrogen makes us want to nurture, and we have testosterone, makes us want to connect, believe it or not. So we've had these big ranges of hormonal experiences that are now going away. And so we become a lot more outwardly focused. We go from our younger versions of ourselves that are people pleasers and taking care of everybody else. And as these hormones go away, we start to actually make a stand for ourselves. And we start to turn into ourselves and start to redesign ourselves. So I feel like what I want to rebrand is that menopause is this opportunity to reinvent yourself. It is something that you go into and you should be excited about because there's a new version of you that's going to come after you get through your perimenopausal years. And I can tell you at 53, that's how I feel. I've spent so much of my perimenopausal journey, like going within and thinking about what I want and thinking about my hormones and really getting to know myself. And I feel like I'm now, as I get into my postmenopausal years, I'm really emerging a new version of myself. And that's the opportunity we all have. And the last thing I'll share on this is that in Indonesia, the year that a woman goes without her period, she's now invited into an elite group of members of certain villages, and they're considered elders of their tribe. And everybody in the village goes to the wise menopausal elders. And they even believe that menopausal women are more psychic now that they don't have their cycle. But I feel like the same thing in our culture is like, I love hanging out with menopausal women. Some of my favorite friends are like 10 years older than me because our neurochemical armor's down. We're very certain about our lives and ourselves. We spent, the lot of time giving to others. We're now giving back to ourselves. We're grounded. We have life experience. Like, let's make menopause something that we all want to go through so we can get to that wise elder place where society looks at us as being valuable, not as being old and not valuable and tossed aside.
Love that. That is beautiful. I mean, I just think of the benefit of wearing white pants without fear, but I like what you said.
Oh my God, I love that. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Okay, that is pretty cool.
All right.
Oh my God, that was so good, Melody. I hadn't even thought about that. I do put on my white pants and not have to think anymore. It's very, very exciting.
Exactly. Well, I wonder how this complements Fast Like a Girl, how the Menopause Reset does.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. It's so funny because I wrote the Menopause Reset first because women asked for it. So they wanted to know what I was doing on my journey. So I gave it to them. And then once it came out, because we should point out this is a revised edition. So when it first came out, my followings, a lot of people, my following and the younger women said, hey, wait a second, what about if I still have an active cycle? And especially around, I'll let you in, one of the 5 is fasting. So I put that Fast Like a Girl really was there to help the 20 and 30-year-olds understand and the perimenopausal women. It was like, I look at each book as like, we're having a continual conversation. So those two to me now are a duo for women over anywhere, over 20. Like they're really, the two of them go hand in hand. They will help women understand each other. I will say that the Menopause Reset was originally, my plan was like, how do I create a book that every 40-year-old should get as a birthday present when they turn 40? And I think that's the way I look at that book. Whereas Fast Like a Girl is a gift for every woman once she goes through, after her period starts. And then the book I'm writing right now will be the trilogy. So
I love it.
They really all go together. And they're like parts of a conversation that aren't being had. It's one of the things that has shocked me about Fast Like a Girl is how many women not only are learning how to fast, but they're learning about their hormones for the first time. And, I think the gym teacher taught us about our hormones, at least my gym teacher. That's where I learned about hormones when I was 16. And so we're so hormonal illiterate. And so what I'm trying to do is bring back hormonal literacy for women in all of these books so that we start to understand ourselves. We can advocate for ourselves. And like I said early on, we have to stop turning on ourselves. We really, the shame, the guilt, the frustration, the negative talk that we give ourselves is really horrific. And if we understood our hormones better, we would stop, talking so unkindly to ourselves.
Well, I saw you last month at the I Can Do It conference, and there was something you said there that I hadn't heard before, and you talked about women without a cycle. And like in Fast Like a Girl, you're timing your fast to your cycle. And here you kind of introduced the moon's wisdom into the fasting cycle. I'd love for you to talk about that. I was really inspired to hear that, actually.
It's so fun. Thank you for saying that. Because when I first started talking about it, I thought, oh, people are going to think I'm crazy. But then when I started really looking into the moon and like understanding the moon, I was like, wait a second, there is no coincidence that our menstrual cycles are 28, typically anywhere from 28 to 30, 32 days. And and the lunar cycle is 28 to 31 days. And in fact, the other day, oh my gosh, I haven't even told you this. I just found this out yesterday in an interview that they actually in ancient times used to, before we had calendars, in order to understand where we were in our calendar year or whatever they would call it, they would look at a woman's menstrual cycle and they'd watch a woman to be able to see where she was within a 30-day cycle, along with mapping that to the moon. Like it became a calendar indicator.
Wow.
That's crazy,
That's
right?
powerful.
Super powerful. So what we have to, the way that I'm teaching it now is that the new moon, which is the day you can get a moon app, on day 1 of the new moon, that would be the beginning of your cycle. And we actually have an app. We have Fast Like a Girl app that's still in beta, but it's available to everybody. And we've now recently put the moon cycle on there. So new moon would be day, and it would be like equivalent to the first day of your period. So if you don't actively have a period, then just look at the new moon. And this is for postmenopausal women as well. Or if you're 25 and you don't have a cycle. I actually have a 34-year-old woman that I'm working with right now that doesn't have a cycle. And so we're looking at the moon to sort of help her navigate that. So day 1 is new moon. Ovulation would occur around full moon. And the reason that we're not all ovulating at the same, or our menstrual cycles are all over the place, is because stress will throw it off and blue light will throw it off. So we've lost our natural rhythm with the moon because of the synthetic blue light that we're exposed to. But if we completely shut down all that synthetic light, pretty quickly you would see a lot of women cycling together, much like women who all are in one workplace will cycle together, or women in a family will cycle together. We have to come back to this honoring that our feminine body is really tapped into a lot more than the eye can see. And the moon is definitely a piece of that.
For that insight. So something that I also heard you talk about in the live, and I think it would be really helpful to people. You said that women are in 3 categories, in terms of, I guess their cycle, or can you just talk about that? I think it would be helpful.
Yeah. So this has been the hardest thing about teaching hormones to the world, is every woman's like, well, what about me? And then you have to okay, what's your age? Like that all shows up. So there's 3 categories that I see. There is the cycling woman. So this is typically 40 and under. And although now it's happening, perimenopause is really happening closer to 35 because of so many stressors. But 40 and under, you should be actively having a regular cycle. If you're not, again, this book can give you those 5 things to really help get your cycle back on track. Then we have the perimenopausal woman, and that usually occurs after 40. And your hormones and your cycle are meant to be a little more sporadic. Some women will see that they have a hormone or a menstrual cycle of 2 weeks. And then like the next month, it might be 30 days. And then the next month it's 45 days. And then the next month it's back to 14. And then it's 60. That's pretty classic throughout your perimenopausal years. Very irregular. And then the third is postmenopausal women, where you don't have a cycle per se, but this is where I really want to bring you back to the moon cycle, because it's not, the feminine body is very rhythmic. It's very cyclical. It operates still off this 28, 30 days. I mean, imagine from 13 to 53, that's 40 years of your life. You have had a rhythm that has gone to your hormones. And just because that goes away doesn't mean that you don't still have some type of rhythm.
So you sort of hinted at it, but do you want to just briefly give people a preview of what you're working on next?
I like the way you're looking at me. Yes, I will give a short. Let me see how I want to preview this, because let's just say I'm crazy excited because I feel like this is missing information. So the next book is about what happens to our brains after 40 and this menopausal journey. And what you and I have chatted, there's a statistic that haunts me, and it's that 45 to 55 is the most common decade for women to commit suicide. And I've watched a lot of my friends go through divorces through their menopausal journey. And actually, 70% of all divorces after 40 are initiated by women. And I'm not trying to keep everybody married, but I do feel that there's something neurochemically shifting in us that isn't being addressed. And I call it the neurochemical armor. And one of the things that we know is that estrogen and progesterone actually stimulate dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, GABA, and glutamate, 5 neurotransmitters. So I, in this next book, want to give women 2 major ideas. I want to give women an understanding of small little strategies they can do to be able to keep their neurotransmitter system up. And then I want to give women tools for being able to really reinvent ourselves, because that's the opportunity that exists there. So it's going to have a lot of people want more, like the philosophy of hormones that I teach. So this is going to have a lot more of that philosophy, but it's also going to have a roadmap on how to keep your moods really in their best place, how to navigate the ups and downs that mentally challenge us throughout menopause. How'd I do with that?
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I feel like during this conversation, you certainly showed us how to reset, but also how to reframe, and I'm really excited to kind of help you put out that message of menopause as a gift, and I think that people will really want to embrace that. So
wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah. If we just sit in that for a moment, so many women are trying to slow down the aging process in very harmful ways. And then we're not talking. In the new book, I will tell you one line that I'm pretty excited about, a concept I'm calling the cultural hush. We just have a cultural hush, shh, don't talk about menopause, don't talk about our periods. I want to flip that up and say, no, let's talk about it. It's time. Let's talk about what we're going through. Let's talk about what we're experiencing. So because you can't help what you don't talk about. Right. So that's what I'm hoping, is that we can start to have a new conversation around menopause that the world can all step into, and we can start saving women just by talking about it. So 1,000%, that's where my heart is. Let's rebrand menopause.
Love it. Well, thank you, Dr. Mindy. Is there anything that you think I should have brought up?
Well, are you sweating? We just need to say, I think I got, just so you know, I think I got a hot flash while we were talking. I had a moment where I was like, woo, okay, here we go.
I'll be turning my fan back on shortly. So.
Turn it on away. Rocky's the only one that won't like that. I think I just want to finish up with everything that I'm writing, everything that I'm speaking about. I just really want women to understand that living in a female body is a true gift. And we are so blessed to have the hormonal profile, neurochemical armor, all of that. Menopause is even the blessing. So we have lived in a world that hasn't honored that. And I'm trying to bring that back. And I'm also feel like this is an opportunity for all of us. This isn't me being a guru. This is me saying, let's crack open this conversation so that we can all step into it. And I think I see it very clearly that if we can get the world reframing menopause and hormones, that women will stop killing themselves. Women will stop building diseases. Women will really thrive in a more patriarchal world that we're living in right now. And that's really, it's getting that empowerment back that's so important, and helping women finally stand up for their hormonal health.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mindy.
My pleasure.
Listeners, I hope you get a chance to read this book, to listen to this book. And, Dr. Mindy is just become such an essential part of Hay House and what we do. And I'm so excited that we have this new project with her and more to come. So thank you, Dr. Mindy.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you. I appreciate you in so many ways, Melody. I will continue to it really means a lot when somebody believes in you, when you're at the beginning of a journey, and especially when it's a woman. So, and this is what I want to create for all women, is we turn around and lift each other up and believe in each other. And you have absolutely done that for me. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, dear listeners. Until next time. Bye-bye.